Good morning, guys, and welcome to the podcast for another edition. Today, I've got a fantastic guest for us, Kendall Berg, and she is a career coach. She's also a TEDx speaker. She's going to highlight all the topics that she helps her clients around, becoming the boss and CEO of yourself, financial freedom, and I'm really happy to have her on. So, Kendall, welcome.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to chat with you guys today.
Yeah, and briefly, self, and we'll dive into the questions.
Awesome. So I'm Kendall Berg. I'm that career coach. My specialty is really helping people progress in their careers. So as someone who struggled themselves moving up the corporate ladder early on, I found that there was this secret language going on that I wasn't aware of. All of these secrets to how to act, how to present yourself in meetings, how to disagree effectively. And once I figured those out, I was promoted 5 times in 6 years, offered a CFO-ship, and then turned right around and turned that into education for my clients to help them find the success they're looking for, find the financial freedom that they're looking for, and really accelerate their careers.
Interesting. And so I know because we talked about our audience avatar, and a lot of them are entrepreneurs, and some of them are in the corporate world, although much less these days. Share some of the ahas that you discovered, that secret language, highlight on that, and what you learned from that.
Yeah. So any entrepreneurs listening will be unsurprised to find that most of your success in your career and your earning potential comes down to the relationships that we build. And what I found over the time that I was in corporate is much less often than expected did your success come down to being technically proficient. Now, you have to be good at your job to have a job, right? If you run a business, you have to be good at executing on your service in order to get more clients, in order to get referrals, in order to get recommendations. But beyond the basics of being good at what you do, what helps you grow a company quickly, what helps you get promoted in your career quickly, what helps you really start to progress faster than the people around you comes down to how you are investing in your relationships. And so one of the biggest shifts that people don't talk about, especially in a corporate job, is that the people who determine if you get promoted is not always your boss. Your boss might be part of the conversation. They may not, depends on their level of seniority and their level of influence. But the people who determine your progression are the people around you that you interact with and the people who are more senior than you. Similarly, if you're running your own business and you're trying to be successful, you're trying to grow your client base, you're trying to accelerate your growth, how you invest in the people who've already worked with you, the people who have already been customers, who had that customer experience end to end, are going to be the people who really help your business grow. Now, there's a lot that comes into play in running your own business and marketing and other pieces of how we bring in clientele, but focusing on nurturing relationships, being intentional with our relationships, and being strategic with our relationships is really a huge shift. And if you work a corporate job, a lot of the time we end up heads down doing the job itself instead of focusing on the people. And same is true as you're scaling a company. If you're the person in the service, if you're the person in the product, it becomes very easy to get tunnel vision and, hey, I just want to make the product better. But the mistake so many entrepreneurs make is we're invested in perfection of the product as opposed to outreach and relationship building, which is really what drives us forward. So that was the root of all of my learnings, was how do I invest in people? How do I communicate more effectively? Most people don't like to be told no or that you're wrong, as I'm sure you can expect. And so learning how to disagree with people effectively and ensure that they stay invested in you is really going to help you navigate some of these more unspoken trends that we see in the workplace.
Interesting. And as you were describing that, a lot of things went through my mind, and I was having lunch with a couple of friends the other day, and they say how fake the corporate world is, and when people are listening to you, sounds like you have to put up a front or a mask, and people are like, I'm not going to play this game. I'm not going to play politics. I want to do the best job and create the best product or service or company. I don't want to invest in relationships and do a shitty job. So how do you address these questions?
Yeah, so I think there's a way to play the game authentically without losing yourself. But you're right that there are many different ways to say the same thing, and saying something in a way that's going to be received better ultimately makes your life easier. right? What we don't want to do is we go into the meeting room and we're like, you're stupid and that's not going to work. And while that might be true, it's not going to make that person want to collaborate with us. It's not going to make that person want to work with us. And there is that measured way that we need to communicate within the workplace. And I think that's what comes across as inauthentic is the circle backs and the let's take this offline and the corporate jargon that we end up then saying to our spouse 4 weeks later because it's part of our everyday language. I think that's what gives it that bad reputation.
Interesting. The other common complaint I hear from people in the corporate world is that only the people at the top are benefiting, and it's like wasting your life and wasting your time. So how do you talk about this idea of job security? Obviously, you can see the government shut down, even government jobs are not secure anymore. So how do you become the CEO of your own career, and how did you do it?
Yeah, so I think that, no job is safe. We are all replaceable, probably more so now than ever before in my lifetime with the introduction of AI and cheaper workforces. And so there's no such thing as a company that is going to put you first. And the mistake that people make is we believe, okay, I'm a widget in a machine. I'm at the mercy of my superiors. And so I'll do a good job. I'll keep my head down. I'll play politics and I hope I don't get laid off, right? This is the approach many people make. And what I advocate instead, and especially in my book, Secrets of the Career Game, we talk about becoming CEO of your own career. If you are the CEO of your company and you're listening to this, or you are the CEO of your career and you're listening to this, you think in terms of what effort do I put in order to make more money, in order to grow, in order to scale? And you stop thinking about, did I do X thing someone asked me to? And you start thinking about, is my business charging the right price for my value? Am I delivering impact to my customers? Am I investing in relationships for the future of my business? And within the corporate setting, what that looks like is maintaining relationships with people you used to work with so that you're not dependent on your current position at the expense of future opportunities. It means that if you're not getting paid your value, you take your services elsewhere. It means that when you're talking to your boss about the things you're doing, you're not saying, hey, I responded to that email from Clint, work's done. You're saying, hey, I was able to facilitate that customer closure and I delivered X value to the company and it's helping us grow, it's helping us develop it. So when you are the CEO of your own career, you're not just thinking about your current position. You're thinking about future opportunities. You're thinking about how you communicate your impact. You're thinking about your growth. You're thinking about investing in yourself, your growth, your development. And that's a mistake people make is we've decided because we work a corporate job, we have security. We have that paycheck every 2 weeks. It's nice, it's cozy. We got that 401k match coming in. And we stop thinking about growth. We stop thinking about progression. We stop thinking about what it means to have control over our life. And by becoming CEO of your own career, you step into more of an entrepreneurial mindset within the corporate world. And many of the people listening probably run their own businesses and they think, oh, I can't imagine reporting to somebody else. The idea of having a boss, it sounds awful. And in some ways it is. For somebody like me who's very risk adverse, I've always loved having a corporate job because consistent pay, I know I'm gonna get my 401k, I know my health benefits are going through. I don't have to stress that if I'm not getting clients, I'm going to be unemployed unless your company's really crashing. And then maybe you will be unemployed even as a W-2. But those are the benefits of that corporate job. But sometimes we get so complacent with that we stop thinking we have control over our own lives and agency over what we do next. And that's where that CEO mindset becomes really important.
Interesting. I'm curious about the clients that come to you. Some of the thing is talking about the hardest workers and they struggle to get promoted, and discuss how your TEDx talk and your book influenced your decision to coach people that struggle in their careers and learn the game.
Yeah. So I was that person. I was really technically proficient. I was really good at my job. I stayed late. I worked hard. And for 5 years, I sat in a reach position, not getting promoted. And I got really sick of it. And I had a VP at the time who came to me and said, Kendall, everybody wants you on their team. You do a great job, but nobody likes you. Pretty harsh, right? And I really respected this individual. We'd worked together a bunch. I thought they were really great. And it was an eye-opening moment for me where I realized like it didn't matter how good I was at my job if people didn't want to have a meeting with me. They didn't want me to be in charge of other people. They didn't want me to have these opportunities. I worked really hard on improving my communication, on being aware of what was happening in conference rooms and learning how executives were communicating. And that led to me writing my book, Secrets of the Career Game, as well as my TED Talk. And my TED Talk really dives into the depths of what's happening in the different generations in work. I think people talk a lot on social media right now about Gen Z and how they work or choose not to work, as the case may be, and how that's creating friction. And I was talking about this actually with my mom a few weeks ago. She's, I don't know how anybody works with Gen Z. And I was like, yeah, but people said the same thing about millennials. People said the same thing about Gen X. People said the same thing about boomers when they were up and coming. They said, oh, they don't work. They don't show up. They're lazy. They don't understand how to communicate. You learn those things or you starve. And that's really what happens in the corporate workplace. So because I had learned this the hard way, because I came up in a workplace that demanded a lot, I was in finance, I was a data scientist, highly technical and analytical. And I realized very quickly that like my communication was not on par with where I wanted my career to go. I started to coach other people and people started sending me their bad employees. Oh, we'll just put the bad employees on Kendall's team. She knows how to coach them. She'll figure it out and teach them better communication. And then we can put them back where they were. And this happened so often in my corporate career that my husband was like, why aren't you doing this for a living? Like you're like rehab for poor communicators at work and you should be leveraging that. And so that's how my coaching journey was born. And now I get a lot of fulfillment because these small tweaks, this CEO mentality, these communication skills, the investment in relationships and networking, by making these little changes, people who are already good at their jobs start to actually get the success and the validation and the money, frankly, that they deserve for that work. And that to me is the really rewarding process of it all.
Interesting. And along that line, because I want to talk a lot about, so you talk about mistakes. What mistakes did you learn as a manager and leader that you learned that either hurt or help your team?
Yeah. So if you worked for me 10 years ago, no, you didn't. I didn't know what I was doing. And I had, nobody had trained me. And Forbes actually published an article a few years ago that said the average manager receives training 11 years after they start managing people, which means most managers have absolutely no clue what they are doing, how to manage people, how to get feedback, how to coach them, nothing. And in my experience, most managers pivot into one of two categories. They either micromanage because they don't know how to delegate effectively. They're afraid of something going wrong. They don't want anybody to make mistakes. And so they're too in the weeds. Or the opposite, they're completely absent. And they're absent under the guise of autonomy. I'm giving my team the ability to do what they want to do. I'm giving them the ability to own their projects. I'm not overly involved. But then the negative is that their team's not getting any support. They're not getting any coaching. They're not getting any feedback. They're not getting any guidance. And so when it comes to managing people effectively, a huge portion of the success of the manager comes down to how they assign work. So I teach my clients an acronym COD, CODS, and it stands for context. What is the problem we're solving? Why are we solving it? Why is it important? Outcome. What is it that you're looking to receive from them? Is it an analysis? Is it a PowerPoint deck? Is it a story? Is it talking points? What is it that you need? Deliverable date. So if you're not assigning a date that something is due when you assign work, you're already going to fail because it's going to make it much harder to follow up and to get things done on time. And then S stands for support. So who are the resources you can go to if you have questions? Where are the systems you go to if you need data? Maybe that is you, the manager, but maybe it's somebody else. And when you assign work correctly, you eliminate a lot of confusion because rather than going, hey, Steve, how did that marketing presentation go or marketing campaign perform? And they're like, oh, we had a 7% lift. But what you're actually looking for is what was the operational execution? What mistakes did we make? What are the learnings? But you didn't give that context. You weren't clear on what you were expecting to be delivered and what the outcome was. You didn't give them a due date. And so what you get is vastly different than what you needed. And so if you can assign work correctly, you save yourself a bunch of headaches. And I had an executive tell me this once, and it's still one of my favorite quotes, said, the best leaders are comfortable with people doing things the second best way. because we always think our way is the best way. But if you can get comfortable with Christopher doing it his way, or Steve doing it his way, or Stacy doing it her way, you're going to get a lot more results and you're going to get a lot more positive feedback from your team. So the big piece is how you assign work. The second piece is how you give feedback. And most managers, we want our employees to get better, but we nitpick. Hey, you sent out this email and there was a typo. Or, hey, you completed this project, but I didn't love the way it was formatted. Or you made this deck and it wasn't executive ready. We come up with little things. And what helps people grow is what I call thematic feedback. So if you can bundle a lot of little pieces of feedback into a theme, you're going to see a lot more growth from that person. So if the theme is attention to detail, and that attention to detail manifests in, you had a typo in this email, you had formatting issues in this PowerPoint, hey, you missed some decimals in your analysis. That is all attention to detail. Now the person receiving that feedback sees it as one thing they're working on instead of lots of little things. And they're able to see the importance of it, because it's not just a, hey, one-time feedback and then we're done. It's a, hey, this is over time an issue that I'm seeing. And if we don't correct this issue, you're not going to see the progression that you want. To any managers who are listening, whether you run your own team in your own business or you work in the corporate world, those are the two biggest pieces of advice I can give you, is make sure you are assigning work correctly with enough context and information, and make sure that when you give feedback, you're giving thematic so that employees know what they actually need to be working on. They don't feel overwhelmed, but they see the severity of the issues that they're causing.
As we come to the final moments is as you with AI and the more articles I read on LinkedIn and the more times social media pops up, it sounds like the lifetime of a leader and a manager is getting less and the turnover is more and more. What do you think the future work looks like with the introduction of AI?
It's a loaded question. I think that AI right now, I think is slightly overhyped. So for AI's current capabilities, executives everywhere are like, we need to employ AI here. It's going to make us more efficient. It's going to allow us to reduce our costs, reduce our workload. And I don't think that most public AIs have matured enough in order to support this. Now, it's not to say we can't build cool AI tools. It doesn't mean that we can't automate some processes, make them more efficient. But if you lived through the data science boom of the early 2000s, we were throwing data scientists at everything. We're going to build a model. It's going to be great. It's going to automate this person's job. 6 months later, we're like, okay, none of these models are really giving us any efficiency. So we'll scrap that. And now we keep data scientists for really complicated problems, right? And I see AI over time evolving in a similar way. Now, there will be work that I think AI replaces completely, namely writing emails, responding to people. A lot of the communication issues that I faced early on in my career, I think get better as AI gets more involved and also get worse as more AI gets involved. But when it comes to managers and leadership, people don't want to manage other people. It's hard. People suck. We don't know how to communicate. We are self-serving. We don't always ask for what we need. We don't always tell people what we need. And so you're seeing in studies, recent Visier study showed that only 30% of Gen X and millennials want to manage people, which means you're going to have this gap where AI is going to automate a lot of the lower tasks. You're going to have this kind of middle seniority workforce, and then a big gap, and then executives. And somebody's going to have to step up to fill that gap. And those people are going to have faster career progression. They're going to have more opportunities for advancement. They're going to have more opportunities to step into executive leadership, because the pool of competitors is going to be so much smaller than we've seen in the past, where everybody wanted to become a manager when I was fresh out of college. Now nobody does. And so I think it's going to be an interesting shift where you're going to see some people step into these roles that quote unquote nobody wants. And as a result, they're going to progress much faster. And then you're going to have people towards the bottom who are like, hey, I just want to do my job. I want to log off. I want to go home and I want to run my side hustle. I want to run my podcast. I want to run my influencer business. And I think that's the shift that we're going to see, is the gap that you mentioned earlier on in the episode, where it only serves the people at the top. I think that gap's going to get worse, because the people at the top are going to get further and further from the people who are doing the work. And AI is going to sit in a weird place in between. And my hope is that we can learn to listen more effectively to the people who are doing the work and build some smarter strategies moving forward.
One final question before we let you go, and how people can contact you and check out your book and your TEDx talk is for the entrepreneurs out there, a lot of coders and builders, influencers, and they just want to, their focus is they want to get product market fit. They want to scale, from 0 to 1. And are those same skills? Because basically, I think Mark Zuckerberg, he was early days of Facebook or Meta, was talking about move fast and break things, just get it done. Whereas in the corporate world, as you were describing it, it's like a more of a nuanced game. So how can people reconcile these two differences?
Yeah, what I would say is even in your business, you still answer to someone. We like to think we answer to ourselves. We get to decide what our website looks like. We get to decide what our voice is. We get to decide what our product is, but you still answer to the client. And learning to communicate effectively with them, to be able to sell effectively to them. Corporate is a game of sales. I'm selling why I should be promoted. You're selling your product, but it's all sales. And so I think learning these communication skills, taking agency as a CEO and not just the founder of your business. This is why so many startups, they grow and they boom and they go public, and then the founder / CEO cripples and falls apart because they're still the founder. They're not the CEO yet. Having this CEO mindset, thinking of it within terms of corporate, what reporting do you have in place? How are we assigning work? How are we tracking success? What is our voice? Who's our target customer? You talked about your customer archetype for the podcast, and thinking about corporate structure in terms of a startup business allows startups to grow more effectively. Ironically, one of the best things that I did for my personal business is I still work my corporate job. And as a result of not having time to be super in the weeds in my business, I had to hire the right people. I had to build systems and processes that were repeatable. I had to build the right infrastructure. I had to document SOPs. And as a result, my company that I own and runs much more efficiently than counterparts that I have who are full-time in their businesses. So what I would say is put that corporate lens on when it comes to your business if you want to scale to the corporate level. And that's going to allow you to operate much more efficiently, much more effectively. And then invest in building a good culture. As the bigger your company grows, the further and further they get from that cool startup Mark Zuckerberg culture that we all want in the beginning. And that's where companies really start to become this bureaucratic mess, is because we're not establishing good culture. And so what happens instead is too many games, too many people not working, and we stifle the growth that we can have. So if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, be the CEO of your business, not just the founder. Make sure that you're building the right processes and scalability and teams and reporting. And then make sure that you are investing in what you want your culture to be for the people who do work for you, so that as your company grows, the culture stays instead of starting to deteriorate.
How can people connect with you and find out more about the work that you do? Check out your book and your TEDx talk.
Yeah, go ahead and check me out at thatcareercoach.net. You'll have everything about my book there, my coaching, my TED Talk that's coming up. And then if you're interested in connecting on social media, I am on every social media platform as That Career Coach. So it's a great place to get some free advice and words of wisdom.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for coming on and enlightening the audience. And it was a fantastic discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Thanks so much for having me.